note. Okay, so the recording is started, and the little not-so-side note that I was about to bring up is tomorrow we don't have any significant news announced. We don't have anything really today. There might be a couple random small things, but there's nothing today of any real interest. Tomorrow is quite a bit of news for the U.S. It's all bright and early, 5:30 a.m. chat time, retail sales, core retail sales, which is really the important one, and PPI, and then we have preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment. I don't really care about this one too much. That's a private report, and I don't really care. But retail sales, core retail sales, and the PPI numbers will be. They'll be decent. We will not have a session tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Friday. Let me double check on that. Tomorrow is Friday, so there will be no live session. But I'll try to peek in a little bit, see how things are looking. I may or may not be out of town. I'm not totally sure yet, so I might be gone somewhere for the weekend. We'll see how it goes. If I'm here, I'll check in. If not, it'll be Friday, and there's not usually that much great stuff to trade on Friday, anyways. Okay, so getting down to this euro dollar. I have been truly plagued with what I think the euro dollar may be doing. Now, I think it's going to stay somewhat range bound until we get the news, which let me just triple check. Let me go back here. Next week, I think the Fed news will be Wednesday, I think, of next week, give or take. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Steve. So Wednesday of next week. So let's have a look at what next week's going to look like. And I think it is, so Wednesday the 18th. That's the big meeting. That's the good one right there. So we've got a decent amount of news next week across the board. But Wednesday, I'm telling you, the markets are probably, I'll just put this out there, they're probably not going to do anything too super exciting before Wednesday, just because that's putting us right into the Fed meeting. And this is the big one. This is the yes or no, we're going to taper, we're not going to taper. And so anything that happens before then, we'll probably get a little bit of movement, but that's the big day. So whether we're going to see any big breakouts before then or not is kind of the big question mark. And that's where I'm kind of curious on this euro dollar. I'm still looking at this area on the euro dollar. I'm looking at this 133.25, 133.50 is kind of a short-term cap. If the euro breaks above that and starts heading, anything above about 133.50, I think we're headed into potentially as high as 134.50. So if we can stay below 133.50, we should, and even 133.40, we should see some decent downward movement. But the one thing that has me a little bit curious, a little bit cautious is kind of the price action today. We've seen a nice double top, little triple top actually. That's been pretty good. But then we end up with this almost hammer on the 1 hour chart, which isn't the most concerning, but it's something to keep an eye on. But then we look at the 4 hour chart, and there's a pretty massive pin bar right there. That 4 hour pin bar makes me a little bit nervous, a little bit cautious, a little bit anticipating the break of this high right here. We've had trend consolidation, and these movements have been literally in a couple of hours, and then we'll have a day or two of sideways, and then a couple hours upwards, and a couple of days sideways, and then once again, and here we go again. So I am looking at the fact that we've broken out of this trend line here. But I'm looking more at the fact that we have a short-term uptrend and a big pin bar, and we're probably headed above 133.25. I would just have to say that that's probably what we have going on this euro dollar. So as much as I don't want to believe it, I think it could be the case. We bounced nicely off the 200 moving average, and away this thing has gone straight up through all of that. So remember, we've been kind of capped out from this low to this high to low. We've been kind of capped out at the 61.8% fib, but that pin bar right there just says that it's time to rock and roll this thing. Do we have a short running on the euro dollar right now? That I don't know that we even have one running. I mean, if you've got one, did I put something on here that I forgot about? Okay, so if you've got a short on the euro dollar, then I would definitely consider, it's probably going to retrace a little tiny bit more. but I would definitely consider closing that and just waiting to see how this goes. It looks like, I mean, I'm just going to say we're breaking 133.25. That's just what's going to happen. So be prepared for that. We'll get a pending order at about 133.30 probably, and we'll see if we can get some of that upward movement. It may only make it up to 133.50. That could be a little 20 pipper, but it's not. It's, you know, we'll take 20 pips, but I think we're headed north here. Pound dollar is kind of just bouncing around, and I don't know what I want to do with the pound dollar really. I'm kind of I don't know. I think we're headed into 160 still, but I'm not sure how I want to trade this. So if I'm not sure how I want to trade it, I'm probably going to stay out of it. We do have a nice little trend line here and some, you know, a little channel in the works, so that'll be something to keep an eye on, but nothing too exciting there. The Aussie dollar, okay, by the way, reminder on the Aussie dollar, I just ended up closing that one. We had our Aussie dollar from earlier today. It was that buy at 92.60. I just closed it at +5, and it's exactly right where I closed it. I just decided I didn't want to stay in it any longer. We had a nice entry. It broke out and it ran up, and we saw, you know, 17, 18 pips profit at one point, and then it's just been totally sideways for like 10 hours now. So I didn't want to sit in that one any longer, just because it was getting further away from the reason that we got into the trade in the first place. So we're out of the Aussie dollar. If you're not out yet, feel free to let it run. If you didn't get the note that we got out, this is basically exactly where we got out, so you can get out at the exact same price. Aussie dollar, I think, still has good potential to rally. One thing that it's done is this was our that was our entry area, but here was this high that we were pretty concerned about, which is around 93.20-ish or so. Barely opened above, and it's coming off of that, but it's not retracing by a whole bunch, and as we can see on this 4-hour chart, it's finding quite a bit of support at the 23% fib, and a couple of things happening there. We have this missed weekly pivot that will get hit, but I think that this Aussie's probably going to head just a little bit higher there. So I'm going to look for two things. I'm going to look for an open and a close below the 23% fib on the 4-hour chart, because it's a bigger range, so we need that to be on the 4-hour chart. If so, I'm going to target the weekly pivot point. Otherwise, you know, I might look for some short-term break, some opportunity that I can potentially get long against the low here of today and get into that. But it's not given the best entry, so basically I'm looking for that move below the 23% fib. Otherwise, buy on the dip somewhere. I just don't know exactly where I want to get in on that dip. So I'm not super gung-ho Aussie dollar right now. We have a very, very real close entry on the euro dollar. Pound dollar probably needs to play out a little bit. Aussie dollar needs to play out a little bit. The Aussie yen made a really nice move here. We still have this gap to fill, and we still have a missed weekly pivot point. So I'm going to be watching the lows of today, and we'll see if we can get below that. And if we can, that should probably be a pretty nice little entry. Otherwise, this may continue higher. We've got a couple of things that I'm looking at. It's definitely kind of bottomed out short term, and it looks as though there's enough support there. We made a nice clearing of the 200 moving average, and now it's come back to kind of test that. So I like Aussie yen longs. And we can even look at, let's see if this range is big enough to pay attention to. Okay, it's 180 pip range. That's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Remember, it ran from this low to high. It ran down to the 61.8. So it's really fulfilled that whole fib setup. And now we've got this whole situation, which is it's just crossed, you know, on the shorter term, which it's not so super short term. I mean, it's 180 pips. We've closed, opened and closed a good couple of times above the 23% fib, which is at 92.15. And I think that this thing is probably going to target that 38 and even the 50, which is a nice little, you know, 20 and 40 pips away. So if we go back and refer to the pivot points, I think I lost internet for a moment. One moment, guys. Okay, so let's continue on here with the is audio and video good still? Both? I think I'm having a little bit of technical problems here. This recording here. Okay, so just to kind of recap real quick, euro dollar, I'm basically looking to buy the euro dollar at the break of 133.20, 25 area. Not do anything on the pound dollar, not do anything on the Aussie dollar for the moment. Looking at the Aussie yen as a possible trade from the 23 to 38 and 50 even. So I like this little run. I think we might be able to get a little bit of pullback. Yeah, Comcast is horrifically horrible, and they always seem to be giving me trouble. So Aussie yen here, the daily pivot point is at where'd it go? There we go. 92.40 is our daily pivot point on the Aussie yen. So 92.40 is basically a 38% fib. Let's look for a little bit of retracement. We're not too far. We're 50 plus pips from the low. I don't think we need to wait for the low. I think this is a good support area, our 92.15 spot. So I wouldn't mind getting into a trade around 92.20. You can see it's about 92.28. 92.20, and if this thing can't stay above about 92.15, 92.10, then it's probably not a good trade. This is just a really short term, see if we can hang in here kind of a trade. And I think there's a good opportunity buying around 92.20 and just, again, exiting at 92.10 if it doesn't hold. Because that's turned out to be a pretty good little support level now. And if it does, if we can get in from 92.20 area, that gives us about 23, 24 pips to the 38% fib and about 45 pips to the 50. So I favor a long above the 23% fib into the 38 and 50 on the Aussie yen. The low of 830. This guy right here, what's 830? This one? Yeah, I've looked at that. But I think we would need to go really from the low of about 828. Yeah, I'm on the 4-hour chart and I see that. But I would go from definitely that 828 low to the high there, and it looks like, yeah, it's testing the 23% fib. So, and again, and that's why I think if we can break the lows of the day, then I'm all about shorting this thing towards that weekly pivot. But if it holds above this 92.15, then I think we've got a nice opportunity to trade into the 38 and 50% fib levels. Okay, that's Aussie yen. I'm not too gung-ho excited about the pound yen just yet. We do have a missed weekly pivot. That's about all. And so nothing too great there. Euro yen, again, just not my favorite pair, so I don't really see anything too great there. So right now the focus is Aussie yen and euro dollar. Our CAD trade, remember we've locked in profit on the CAD trade. And we need to be ready. Now, in case this happens in the middle of the night, remember that our middle of the night stuff is typically take the stop loss and profit targets off and let a hedge run. Because if this kicks us out of the middle of the night and then doesn't make a good significant run, then we're in trouble, and that's not good. So what we want to do is before you go to bed, if this hasn't taken the hedge out or anything like that, then take the stop loss. Remember, we've locked in on the hedge on the dollar CAD. Take the stop loss off and just let it run open free. Is everyone clear on that? That's pretty important. For anybody that's hedged, we don't want to go to bed with any stop losses or take profits on anything. We'll just make sure that both those positions, the buy and sell on the dollar CAD, have no stop losses and no take profits on them, because we need to just let them run, and then we'll get up tomorrow morning and see if we can close it again. So this thing has been totally sideways. Ever since we had to hedge it, it's just been flat and sideways. And there's a nice trend line, and I think it'll break back up towards that weekly pivot point, which is the goal. But in the meantime, it's just a bunch of sideways garbage. So we're waiting for that to do something. Okay, and then just running through a couple of these pairs, I do like the Euro Aussie. I think this is a great one. We missed that weekly pivot, which I love, and it's pulling back nicely. We're 80 pips away from the weekly pivot again. So I'm going to be looking for this kind of stuff. That's a 170 pip movement. Good grief, this thing's crazy. So 170 pip movement. I'm just going to keep an eye on, you know, the basic fib levels and so on. It's run down to the 38. Let's look for 50 and 61.8, some support around there, and that's you can see, you know, where our breakout level was. That was a pretty good one, and that almost overlaps the 61.8. So if we get some of that, then I'm going to be looking to get long, you know, around 143.00, 143.10 into the weekly pivot. Which is a great move there, 120 or so pips, and then on up to the weekly pivot of last week. So love the Euro Aussie. This is a great one. Let's keep an eye on it. Watch some trend lines on the 15-minute chart. Just for some short-term stuff, look for some breakouts. Remember, we have a nice little run up, basically a bit of a bull flag, straight up, and it's just kind of some sideways activity. So it's basically going to continue higher. It's just how much lower will it go. So draw a trend line in there. Look to see if that trend line breaks and take an entry on that. Otherwise, let's look for some retracement and look to buy the bounce around 143.00 to 143.10. That's a pretty important one. Is everybody pretty clear on that? Remember, I'm recording this so you can go back and review. But that's a pretty big deal. So Euro Aussie is a real good one. We have a nice continuation pattern here, and I think we're going to be able to get this thing back up to the weekly pivot and beyond sooner than later. Okay, still just holding on the pound Swiss franc. No major activity there. Euro New Zealand still has that missed weekly pivot. Keep an eye on that, but it's kind of messy looking. I'm not jumping into this one just yet. A little hammer there, a couple of things going on, but I'm not jumping in that pounds or that Euro New Zealand just yet. Euro CAD totally sideways as well, not really doing anything there. So basically, I'm not really doing anything on the rest of these pairs. I'm just looking for Euro Dollar to break 133.25. I'm looking for Aussie Yen to get long around 92.20 above the 23% fib. And I'm looking for Euro Aussie to either break this trend line or dip down and give us an opportunity to get long around 143.00. So those are kind of the basic three pairs that I'm looking at that I think have the best potential opportunity over the next several hours. So that's what we're doing. Remember, on the dollar CAD hedge, take all stop losses and take profits off if it hasn't started moving up towards our original position before you go to sleep. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're looking at. Questions, comments, guys, send them on over.